My name is Lara, as you know, Bozabalian, and I'm so glad to be back. I was here about 4 or 5 years ago with the SLAM team, so I'm thrilled always because this is such a SLAM-friendly event, and it was one of the first major events as a SLAM artist that we felt was very welcoming to us. People will sometimes have you as sort of the circus opening act of like all the real poets and whatever, but for people in the community, we're spending so much of our lives, and I straddle a couple different communities, and I know that the effort that goes in is no less. You know, it's quite dramatic and performance-oriented, but just like an actor or an engineer or a mathematician or what we would call a page poet, and it's really the same relationship, a relationship that's across all the boards, and so it was with great love that I was coming back, and we really had a wonderful time when we came here the first time, the whole team. It's really bonding. So Toronto loves Words Aloud. I have not performed in about a year. I've really quite busy with performances sometimes, and then for the first time in like 7 years, I decided to take a good amount of time off. I'm a teacher as well, which is, not busy at all. So I decided to take my weekends back and my evenings back from performances and traveling and really, really concentrate on writing over the last year and see if I could have this ongoing conversation with myself instead of just dropping in on my writing at March break and Christmas and summers, which is how I've managed over the last decade or so. And I brought some of my new poems. I have pretty much a new full manuscript that I'm really excited about, and I'm going to world premiere some of them for you tonight. I haven't read them anywhere, although some of them, I'll read the Beethoven poem, have been out and about on the internet. And I'm just so thrilled that this is where I'm going to be sharing them, because you're such careful listeners up in this corner of our beautiful province. So this collection, I'll just say, is called Tourist. And I was really interested over the last couple of years with the idea of revolution in the sense of movement and the moment at which things change and all the different elements of being a tourist, and how, in my experience, being as conscious as possible, I feel more and more like I am one all the time, emotionally and physically, geographically. So this poem is called Bombay Obod. It's a morning poem. Bombay in the morning is a body without clothes on, its rutted, ragged streets like veins in skin. At Pulse Point, Crawford Market, the prawns are elbow deep in pavement, crows attendant surgeons, wet asphalt resplendent with threads of flesh and kin. Dawn creaks across the alley, through a horseshoe of cotton work shirts, bodies lined like pencils in a case. Here breathe the guardians of street stalls in dreams of sea before the sauna heat. Inside the darkened kingdom, sun's lung-spangled mangoes perch in mottled splendor, a sphinx of limes in burlap-crested rim. Ribbed cayenne pepper baskets, a mountain range of nature's softened heaps. Flags hang limp from rafters over flower settles. Flags hang limp from rafters over flower sellers' petals, as pilgrims offering Krishna souls for news. Down inside Dharavi, the river a bleeding eggplant, garbage swirls the bed in tangled fleets. The same sun that west hides from, here is an oxen worker, walks tarps to spread wet wares beneath its feet. In Dharavi, a new empire, recycle a word for farming, a world that recreates itself twice in sleep. 175 hectares, the size of 18 school fields, mass stretched over fence lines and forced to eat. Lifetimes curled up chimneys, a centipede of millions nursing ragged thunder on ravine need. Look across the skyline. See a boy reading the paper, a landfill of recycled phone parts at his feet. Walk upside down on the earth. Watch the clay-soft faces of toddlers, naked, cupped around more industry ever seen in Toronto, ceramic communes, dry cleaners, dobies, hair salons, fruit and wares, liquor and cards, children in uniforms who spray forward through the streets around oxen in need of candy, in want of a pop to sing their teeth. Walk further and further, deeper into the heart of this people's palace, an orphanage of objects that lead from home to home, rooms the sizes of bathtubs, bird's nest apartments, bodies squeezed into the corner backs of buildings built from bolts and boxes and wood that is left over from the rest of everything. Watch the heel of your guide as he laughs and slips through Escher's alleyways. Who might you be in a year? Never found. Hairdresser? Dye maker? Chapati maker? Slide your arms into the sari worn by the 90-year-old making dough circles on the corner, working the days of her life like the parts in a machine, beads of a japamala, flaps of a wing. Turn a corner into shouldered colors. See a boy sitting in an impossibly tall doorway, book open on his lap, letters threaded stowaway on his lips. Stashed in place of the shoes he does not own, treading treetops in a desert. The outline of this boy, a potter, a doctor, a father, a teenager. The footprint he may leave in the road you first considered a dustbin. Your own legacy lying dormant at your feet. Thank you. That poem, and a lot of the poems, and I hope that you'll see the theme. It was about my really complicated relationship with some quite intense traveling I did a couple years ago, and how that opened up a relationship I had with everywhere I went once I came home, and the discussion that I continue to have with myself and indulgent friends about this topic as I go on. Much of the book, of the manuscript, is not just about India or Cambodia or these other places that I was deeply moved by and moved in, but the ideas and stories that are always floating through the community and through, the mouths of people that just seem to walk in and out of my life, and how sometimes I want to step into the stories and move around in them. So this is called Flint, Michigan. Ray's 10-year-old eyes, taking in his first bankruptcy. The hollowed streetlights on 4th, the sheen on his skin, Mama cursing as the truck back bloated and filled, stained mattresses, hampers, untwinned sneakers, strung out like corkscrews and sure to scatter behind the glowing taillights. The only thing lit up that Christmas Eve through gray rain that fell and fell. Hands thin as bread skin held the paper-jacketed poinsettias, a Christmas bonus from the job that no longer existed. Someone had thought to protect them from the cold. A thin coat, maybe 2 flower jackets thick, perched on his shoulder, uncertain of its luck at being owned. No velveteen rabbit this, just a coat wheezed across bodies, hunched past welfare lines through alleys filled with so little light, even footsteps seemed to be a sort of riddle, as you heard them, lost them, offered them, into the bitter Michigan cold. Thank you. So just to lighten things up a bit, I'm going to shuffle things around. We're not going to plunge right into divorce, which is going to come next, possibly. Maybe we'll go to sanctuary. How about that? Okay. So one of the things that I love more than anything, and Liz actually knows this, we've shared a bit of this time together, is walking in wild places. And I feel so deeply connected to so many of the wild places, and that's why I love Ontario's geography so much. And I've moved away many times, and I keep coming back to the lakes and the bays of Ontario. So, sanctuary. A whistle sweep of canine, and we are on the highway. Blue smudged October holds steady at my shoulder, leans into the window as we leave paved roads for gravel crunch offering. Keys, water bottle, locks. I announce myself with clumsy steps, mindful of ticker tape from the other side of an ocean. Rainforests, teeming cities, and tidal markets have kept me out of touch. Foreigner, to this place, to this body I used to live inside of. Months later, this world is newly found. I call the ground for ritual. Scritch, scritch, squirrel feet on wet leaves. Fists of decomposition. Red berries yelped against the slate horizon. An elephant hoof of an old stump. Old Man River peers out from a submerged log, complacent in marriage. Otter-draped rivulets make fish bones of the stream. Ceiling loft of green no gallery could offer. Softer here, sounds layered as watercolor. Human interactions becoming extinct. The breath of sanctuary. To be cut off from the rest of the world in its churning mindlessness. Reverence itself a miracle, folding the underlying assumption of strength backwards over itself, removing the knowledge of what it is to move forward, like a cloud of air evaporating in the morning. A miracle, this act, to be. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like that relaxed me. All right. Now I'm going to start breaking glass, and I won't even care. All right. This poem, I was so sad, or celebratory, but sad. I'd like to know of Adrienne Rich's passing earlier this year, as I'm sure many of you were. And she is one of those people that, even now, before I know what it is I understand about her, I still want to bring her with me everywhere I go. I have this huge book, if anyone has it. It's like 3 of her books in one. There's the discourses. Anyway, it was like she's this person I just always wanted to hang out with, you know, before I even knew her. And I brought this book of hers like across country. And now I feel like I get it to a degree, but she's always so ahead of me, you know. And I wrote this poem, and then it wasn't good, and I couldn't figure it out. And then as I always do, I went to mentor poems and just looking for people like elders, you know, like to help me. And then I read one of her poems, and maybe you can guess after, and I was like, oh, she already wrote this, and it's way better. But anyway, this is my poem called Lighthouse, and you can guess. That's my teacher trick. You can guess, and we'll talk about it later. After Georgian Bay. On the way to the island, nothing came easy. Cantankerous groceries spilled from the car, condoms dropped from my pockets, store clerks, the paparazzi of public places poured over newsprint as the dog refused your leash. I held my breath as you strode back and forth, disowning the dog even as you chased him. A telephone wire of nervousness ran through us. Something depended on this. The dog, the idled boat, the sun on water. The afternoon coiled around us like a string. At the cottage, I stashed sleeping bags, food, liquor, unpacked towels, the sound of your voice, the pealed bell of laughter, not mine, the clink of ice cubes hitting glassware, splinters grasping from the unvarnished wood. I put down plates, cups, knives, walk the garden towards the water's edge, freckled sunlight, scalloped ferns, pup's tail chatter nervously at my ankles, the shedding of sleeves and coats, dress relict upon the rocky shoreline. The bay moves in breaths, falls back to shore. On point amongst river pebbles, I find footing. Calves swallowed, thighs swallowed. Only cloud fills the spaces I have left. My arms trails wings, phosphorescent, streamlined below the skin of land. I float in the air of midwater, watch my toes, hands, palms up, a starfish of oxygen and blood and bone, a pellet in the palm of this watery hand. The bay breathes and returns to shoreline. Islands appeal to me. Underwater, I hum along. I descend a ladder of memory, a photograph coming into focus. The first time we kissed, I was still married. Then, what we knew, when. Now, I am in a bay, guarding the farthest shore. You are watching from 100 yards, hands on hips as the mating of swans, question marks to bookend my departure. Here is how it is. Cousin jellyfish, languorous seaweed, arc de triomphe of coral, water moving like silk across my brow. There was never any choice. The tide pulled me in, regardless. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. All right, I just have two shorties, three more to go. This summer, I also love to travel in Canada, and I spent a month on the border of British Columbia and Alberta, which was really incredible. And tried my hand at hunting, a lot harder than it looks, you can imagine. And I don't like hurting animals, so it made it really awkward for the guy who was trying to teach me how to shoot the gun. Anyway, but this is called Hunter. The hunter raises his arm like an anchor in swing. The barrel in the center of his knowledge, his sight poured like water into cups. Finger paints trigger softer than you'd imagine, soft as he'd touch his daughter's brow. In weight of kettle call, an implosion of rubies against trunk. His boots mud, splatter with skin and gut. His favorite colors, the color of axles and mantles and a leather wallet in which he carries the faces of his own children, pressed up against plastic, water eyes sparking, as fish flashed in stream when caught. Thank you. Okay, so I just have two more. This poem is called Cordelia. A bit of a Shakespeare nerd. I love Shakespeare. The end. Cordelia. I believe in the thick gray fog of hatred that tucked me in most afternoons and evenings. It wasn't as cloying as you'd imagine, more of a stillness, a chalk-thin handshake between me and the rest of the world. I allowed myself that space, measured in millimeters. I was allowed to live and breathe. I would go there, forehead leaned against windows, at the dinner table, under his gaze thick as gravy soup. I would inhale quietly, constantly, thin as an envelope. How many times did I wish for his death? I remember sitting in church, rotating my fingers into different shapes against the pews, biding time until imagined good fortunes. 30 years later, and he is still here, a lump of flesh and anger, voiceless nearly from surgeries that took his shield. I remember when fire spewed, walking through snowbanks to cool invisible scars. School time was lived in real time, in everything before and after I had to see him. Now he is the one who gazes at pictures, books, trying to make out the year and the surroundings. I am on the other side of the glass now, still living in a quiet place, creating, certain of all that came before. Thank you. I have one more? Oh, you're just done. All right, thanks. Thank you. I thought you were walking me off the stage there. I was like, oh, it's like the Academy Awards or something. The music's playing. Thank you. Yeah. Is this being filmed? Oh. Okay, this is Beethoven Walks. And before I read it and say goodbye, I do want to say, and I spoke to Liz about this before, what an incredibly powerful pleasure it was for me to collaborate with videographer friends of mine to make that film. And I'm really not, I'm not trying to, whatever that word is, prop the film, or what do you call it when you're plug. I'm not trying to plug the documentary as much as a poet and someone who spends a great amount of my life in a room writing, you know, with my dog, how powerful it was to let go and then accept your work back to you in a different form. And I really encourage you, and I'm a teacher, and I put this on the curriculum at my school, like to make a video poem. Like, I really want you to find those other rooms in your house, inside of yourself, that I learned so much from making this, you know, in a weekend. Like, it was a wonderful experience for a lot of surface reasons, but the much more powerful reasons for me were that I had this new relationship with myself after I did it. And I didn't know that was coming, you know, and that's one of the gifts of life, one of the joys of life. So please collaborate, explore. It's such an amazing, you know, it's an amazing experience. So this poem is called Beethoven Walks, and I went to U of T. I was super nerd, like researching Beethoven. Why? I don't know, you know, just researching Beethoven, and came across this story of how he had fallen in love with Josephine, one of his students. And I became kind of mildly obsessed with this sort of, and I was trying to write this Beethoven after Josephine poem. And then another thing I've learned is that sometimes the time limits, not like the one up here, which should be in effect probably, but the time limits on a piece of writing really helped me edit. And I had to bring it down to 40 lines for the, as it happened, Montreal prize. But it became about, to me, Beethoven's relationship with himself and his constant movement, and that's why I think it fits in this collection for me. So this is about him moving, revolving. I remember the day when I heard my last sound. It was gentle, a soft tap on the window. Looking up, I felt the seal close. That was it. Rain, the only soldier at my farewell. The same patter that began it all. In Teplitz, the faces of villagers gaze up at me like raisins, try to dismantle and reconstruct who I am, plant a flag in my arm. They say that I am not one for journey, though I traveled for Mozart. Each mile took me further from mother, the earth pockmarked, the carriage rain-shuttered. Full symphonies cramped my throat, fields crowded with racket, white-hot lilies dampened by a fist of clouds. I walk dirt paths now, a farmer finding wildflowers to cull. I never thought to seek ballet in the arch of a tree, melody worth memorizing in rivers wander. Everywhere full cups, on the table, by the door, the first time we sat together at the piano. My shoulder learned by rote the smell of your skin. All of a sudden, I understood mathematics, found a metronome to your laughter, something to tap my hand against. Everything too bright, loud in color, like focusing the eyes on a field of roses. The world is a tapestry of elevation, I on top, looking down. I chase echoes, copy notes on my skin, open my mouth and awaken on the floor. I am traveling, always, between the life of my eyes and the journey of my eardrums. Each sight brought back to a workshop deep in the heart of me. I cut up and down hills, light carried in buckets, to be forged into sound. A choir in the fingers of one hand. Thank you so much.